in celebration of Star Wars Week, it wouldn't, Star Wars Month, May, Star Wars Day, May the 4th, it wouldn't be Star Wars if we didn't talk about the final season of Star Wars Clone Wars. So we're going to do a review of the final 2 episodes as the show as a whole, and what might be next for Star Wars Animation and Ahsoka. Now, before I let you take over, Chris, because you have watched the whole season, all the seasons, and I'm dipping my toe into it, I did spoil myself, and I watched the final 2 episodes.
No!
I did.
Why would you do that?
You've been hyping it up.
Oh!
I knew we were talking about it.
Oh God, like, that's so awful, but it's so good.
I watched it. It was, first of all, the animation is amazing.
You see how much it jumps too, right? From like season 1 and 2.
Yeah, I'm still like towards the end of the season 1. I'm like, this is so rough. Season 7, I'm like, this is so clean. I want a whole series with this kind of animation. Got me on board, even though I don't have the emotional depth, and I don't really care about Ahsoka as much as Chris and other fans, because she's relatively new to me. To see the fallout and what happens after they order 66, right? After they, order to kill all the Jedis, and her dealing with one of her close friends who happens to be a clone trooper, and pretty much how it sets up her journey at the end for future. There was still a lot of weight on there, and I was like, wow, this is pretty good. Like, it felt fun. It felt long, because normally, like, you're watching the season finale. The only caveat that I have to it, and that's somebody who hasn't watched the whole season, who hasn't been on board.
Clearly.
It didn't feel like a series finale to me, and I wanted to know if it did to you, someone who's been along and who also knows the story, because, we do see Ahsoka's character again in Rebels. So did this feel like a series finale to you?
It did, and it didn't at the same time.
Okay.
And I think that's okay.
Okay.
Because it felt like a series finale for Clone Wars 100%. Like, this to me did the end of exactly what the title is and what the war was about. And we all knew the war ended with Order 66, and we had to see that play out. And it also didn't because of what you said. We see Ahsoka in Rebels. We also see, clone troopers in Rebels as well. We see Rex. Yeah. And it was a great bridge to kind of see how this happened and how she went into hiding and exile. And how she got out of this almost impossible situation. So in the way of Clone Wars, yes, it felt like it finished 100%. It's done because the next chapter in the Star Wars story is the Empire and, going to Solo Rogue One Episode 4 territory. So, yes, it did feel like an ending. And it also felt like a beginning because it starts kind of Ahsoka's next journey. Yeah.
Awesome.
But as far as the last 2 episodes, which now you've seen, for some reason,
I did it.
I would never do it like that.
I don't recommend it to anybody. Now have going through the terrible decision.
That's just, oh my God, painful.
But I knew who the one guy was, that one clone trooper, because I've seen him in the beginning of season 1.
Yeah, and so the 3rd episode, and like I said, all these 4 episodes are basically one episode. It all connects, and like I'm sure you saw with what you saw, it starts off with that old Lucasfilm scroll, that green eerie. Scroll,
with the red Star Wars
very
text.
Dark, and the logo comes up and it's red. It's not gold, like gold on the shirt. It's just red, and it's dark, and it is meant to be dark. And basically, what I said last week is kind of come to fruition. We see Order 66 in Episode 3. It happens, and the finale is kind of the fallout, and to where we get to Ahsoka and getting that kind of out of the, how does she get out of it? Episode 3 was dark. It was sad. It was rough. The stuff of her kind of, which I thought was really cool, her and Darth Maul, who's finally captured, both sense kind of Anakin becoming Vader. They're hearing the stuff in his head of, him killing Mace Windu, quote unquote killing Mace Windu, and him basically pledging himself to Palpatine in order to save Padme. they hear that, and Ahsoka knows something's wrong. And then the clones, Order 66 comes through. We see it. We see it happen.
It was cool. It was definitely cool to see the visuals.
We see it, and all the clones, their little chip in their head activates. This, fail-safe that was put in back when they were invented.
I had no idea that that's why they did it. I didn't remember, there's chips in these clone troopers' heads that caused them to do this, and that they were created and born to have this as their fail-safe.
Yeah, and that's part of what makes a lot of them stormtroopers, where if you see obviously the stormtroopers, which I thought was one of George Lucas's more brilliant fixes, because if you look at the original Star Wars trilogy on its own, the stormtroopers are just these dumb kind of grunt up shoulders that can't shoot straight. But George kind of being no, they originated as these clones and they were people and they had identities, and all of that was taken away from them to where they became kind of almost like Nazi foot soldiers. Nameless, part of the, just part of the movement, nameless faces. Like a hive all in white of soldiers. Exactly. So that aspect was really, dark. Seeing Rex kind of turn on Ahsoka was heartbreaking. If you watch the entire series, Rex is kind of like the unbeknownst, big brother or father to her. He's seen her grow up. They've grown up together. They've gone on missions together. They've saved each other's lives. Okay. So they have a close relationship. And to not only see that, but see Ahsoka, who has left the Jedi Order and is not a Jedi anymore, technically. Basically be more of a Jedi than anyone to fight to save her friend's life.
By the way, when I saw her defending those shots, the way she uses weapons, oh my god, she's so cool. She's such a cool fighting style. Yeah. Now I want to watch the show even more just to see the showcase of her powers and how she fights.
And you will, and it gradually. It gradually goes from her mastering her one saber, then getting a second one. I love her fighting style where it's kind of the big blade in front, and then she has kind of the short dagger blade.
Yes.
And she kind of uses it as a backhand defender. She's ridiculous. But her kind of taking that moment to not only free Darth Maul and say, "You're my distraction. I don't care about you."
That was cool. That was a good scene.
It was, and you're sitting there going, yeah, she's distracting him to get off this ship. No, she's distracting them so she can save Rex and bring him with her.
I thought she was going to give up on him. I was like, oh, how are you going to do it?
I thought so too, until you see the medical droid area where they're getting the chip out of his head. Mm-hmm. We also see a very direct tie to Rogue One, where she does, I'm one with the Force is with me.
Yeah, what was that?
Which makes me have so many more questions of how that ties into Rogue One and the guys from Rogue One who says it, the blind monk.
Yeah, I thought that was strange. I was like, why is she saying this? That sounds very familiar.
Yeah, so that ties into Rogue One somehow. Maybe Ahsoka throughout her journeys meets a couple of these people.
Oh, that'd be cool.
And that was kind of her mantra to find this chip that's hidden so well in his brain that Palpatine has done and when he created these clones back in before Episode 2.
Now, do you think we're going to get another series with her? I'm sorry to cut you off, but now I'm curious.
No, it's fine. Yeah, I do. I think there's a couple options on the table right now. I think Dave Filoni, I could talk for hours about the genius of Dave Filoni. I think Dave Filoni alone should be the one to helm anything Ahsoka related, whether it's going to be a live action show that they clearly backdoor with Rosario Dawson.
Yeah.
I think whether it's a show, if you've seen Rebels kind of ends with Ahsoka as an adult, and one of the Mandalorians, Sabine, going into wild space to find a couple other characters in Rebels.
Now, does
as well as Thrawn
ever fight Darth Vader?
Yes, in Rebels.
In Rebels. Okay.
And I can tell you, I have never been more emotional watching any episode of television. That episode is so well done. I was physically angry that Filoni wasn't nominated for a Globe or an Emmy based on the writing, the directing, the storytelling. None of it. Animation, none of it. It is one of the most beautiful and perfectly done Star Wars anything I've ever seen. And it's kind of built up through Maul's still around. in Rebels. He's a lot older. But seeing that grow into her eventual confrontation with Vader and realizing that it's Anakin, I was weeping like a baby. But that's obviously a story for another time. But yeah, I think there's two ways. I think that's the easy backdoor that we're kind of like, we want to see Ahsoka's story in wild space beyond kind of the outer rim and beyond the space that we know of in the Star Wars universe. Planets we've never seen before or heard of before. Creatures, animals, people. And
it doesn't have to tie into the Star Wars saga. I mean, there's
no, and it clearly can't, right? Because Ahsoka's not in it. Yeah. And it can't do it anyway. So to have her kind of, which is an awesome, like, if a timeline is linear, one line, and Ahsoka's is kind of curved going through everything, it's still a fantastic story, right? Like, you still get some of the story elements like you saw in those last 2 episodes, but done from a different perspective that you've never seen before, and everyone wants to see familiarity, but in new ways, right? Like, and I think no one does it better than Filoni right now when it comes to animation, when it comes to storytelling with Star Wars.
I gotta say, even just watching these two, like, I am so, I probably already said this, but I'm so hyped for a new Star Wars animated saga, right? So for something new to come out. Like, the animation that they're at right now and the fluid motions of the lightsaber battles is going to be, so far superior than what we can do live action. And I just can't wait to see what they come up with next. I really do want to see an Ahsoka story, like you were saying. Like, I just started to care about this character, and obviously we see that heartache that she went through in the final 2 episodes. And even as someone like me who doesn't have that strong connection with her, I can feel that because of the writing and the, the art that is portrayed in the series. Like, it's done so well. Yeah. And I was always like, the casual laissez-faire Star Wars fan, but this gets me more pumped to become more involved in the Star Wars mythos, because I was like, all right, we're getting to see these cool characters fight, and we get to see this great dialogue. And something I didn't know until very recently, Dave Filoni, he worked on Avatar: The Last Airbender, and that's kind of like how he got the job here, which we'll talk about.
He did. I didn't know, which we'll talk about next segment, because I want to talk about that. Yeah, because I was like blown away.
And I was like, wow, that makes so much sense that this guy of this caliber comes over here and takes these characters and bring them to a whole nother level.
Yeah, and invents Ahsoka, and she's the biggest female character in Star Wars as a cartoon. But definitely this last episode, the finale, obviously full spoilers for this Clone Wars series as an end. We see, like, it starts right off the bat, right? Like, it's all one episode. It starts immediately after the last episode. Ahsoka not only is still trying to save Rex and herself, but also, like, saving the other clones, right? She's like, no, put your weapons on stun. That stuff is more Jedi than most of the Jedi had to deal with, right? Like, you see episode 3, Yoda and Obi-Wan go back to the temple are just slaying them. You know what I mean? They're like, kill or be killed right now. Sorry. We got some real stuff to deal with.
Yep. Can't father to them.
Yeah. And I love the ties and connections, the direct connections to episode 3. The beginning of the finale it tells you everything with the music, with John Williams' score. They're playing the funeral music of Padme Amidala.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Which is at the very end of episode 3. So when she's you get that scene with her, and it's supposed to look like she's still pregnant with the twins so that the Empire doesn't know they exist. And she has that, like, charm that little Anakin made for her in episode 1. And Padme's they have her funeral back on Naboo. That's playing. So we know this is when this is happening. So this is, like, the end of episode 3. So then we see the escape. The Ahsoka, like, fighting off clone troopers. I'm like, this girl is fucking exhausted. And you see it. You see it. Like, you see her, like, kind of, like, breathing. The move where she uses the Force on her lightsabers to cut that hole in the floor was so cool. Ridiculous.
Dude, when she's cutting through the guns to pretty much effectively shut down the clone troopers, so fluid, so smooth. Like I said, the whole thing was done great.
And all her powers of Force manipulation. I love the conflict within her, which shows that, yes, she was trained by Anakin, remember. The conflict within her of, like, I can stop Maul from escaping.
Yes.
but but I'm not Anakin. I'm going to save my friend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And obviously the very end was...
That was a good visualization between being torn between the two sides. Because you felt the intensity with the Force in between both of her.
And you feel like you kind of, in your mind, are like, okay, what is she going to do? What's her next move? Like, is she going to go here? Is she going to go here? I love the droids. Never underestimate a droid. The three droids that were helping her throughout. And just the ending of, even though you know she's going to live, even though you know Rex is going to live, the tension of getting into that Y-Wing where he's like trying to find her and have her land, and she's reaching out, and
that was good.
Such great tension, stress, frustration, and then at the end, right?
Yes,
it's
when they tie it all together.
To tie it all together with all this death. This was kind of her unit. They painted their mask to look like her, out of respect, even though she wasn't. Yeah, that happens a little early in the season. So a lot of those orange and white, that was meant to look like Ahsoka. That was kind of like her unit. And for her to have to go in and like slaughter all of them, and then she buries them respectively with their helmets. Yeah. Which I thought was a great foil to the disrespectful way we see stormtroopers in The Mandalorian when they're on pikes.
Yeah, very, very similar visual effects that you have.
But it was beautiful, and to see her kind of like slowly drop her lightsaber, which to me was not only symbolic of, I have to go away, I have to hide. I also have to look like I died here. And I also have to, kind of leave this entire being, my entire self back here. Like, I'm not this person anymore.
I liked how it flash forwards, and then we see Vader and the Empire come down, and he grabs the lightsaber because he knows what happened here. Pretty cool. Pretty cool.
That scene to me meant so. Like, that's where I started welling up with Vader.
Really?
Because to me, I don't think he was there to just kill her. I think he wanted, because this is Vader just becoming Vader, right? So he's just put in the suit. Anakin just got his junk rocked on Mustafar by Obi-Wan because of the high ground thing. And he just got put in the suit. I don't care how, quickly you go from good to evil. In my view of that scene, there is no way Anakin's fully dead yet. There's no way he's not. Not at that moment. Not at that moment. There's no way he's going there to hope she's dead. I think there's a piece of him hoping he doesn't find anything and hope she got away. Because I think when he grabs her saber and looks at it all rusted because of the weather elements and everything, I think a part of him is like, which it is, this is my fault. Because of my choices
of his Padawan.
All of this happened. Because I did this and decided to choose wrongly, all the people I knew are dead. All the people I love are gone. And to see her lightsaber and to hold it, and then he walks away in that vision of one of the Ahsoka painted stormtrooper helmets was perfect. And you could see the weight of his actual this is my fault, and then you're going to realize, oh my God, this is why he goes deeper and deeper into hate and anger, because he is not only just evil and angry, this guy is the ultimate self-deprecator as well because of the choices he's made.
Before we move on, I have one last question about Star Wars The Clone Wars, the final season, and the show as a whole. Now, we had that huge break between the previous season and this season. This season, originally wasn't going to happen. Was the wait worth it? Was this final season that good for you that you're happy with the way it's good? Or was it something like, you know what, it was good, I could have done without it, I don't really care at this moment, it should have came out when it came out, it's almost too little too late. How do you feel about that aspect?
Definitely not too little too late. Definitely worth the wait based on the last 4 episodes. Okay. They could have easily released this entire season as 4 episodes.
The final 4
Those last 4, and I would have been fine. the Bad Batch, which was the first arc, and then kind of Ahsoka seeing her away from the Jedi Order for the first time, which was the second arc.
Okay.
Those two were episodes that were kind of half done. They were called the Lost episodes that were never finished. They released them on Netflix a couple years ago in like their really raw form where like legs aren't moving.
I remember that, yeah.
And they kind of wanted to finish those because they were half made and be like, no, this is part of the story, which I get is fine.
Gotcha.
But the last 4 episodes is all I will talk and think about of the final season.
Good to know. Good to know.
To me, it is basically almost Star Wars at its best. The way everything weaved through episode 3, the way it was the opposite sides, the way, which you probably didn't see because in the first 2 episodes she's still talking to Obi-Wan and people seeing what's going on. They're telling them about what's going on in episode 3, basically. To see kind of Ahsoka's, this was kind of her prime right now because this is the most we see of her. Rebels isn't about her. She just pops in every once in a while.
And people are crazy.
Yeah, but again, we get episodes of Rebels like the one with her and Vader, where she realizes it's Anakin because she hits his helmet and sees his actual face, and he like says Ahsoka, and you hear it as Vader and Anakin at the same time. Oh, chills. Like stuff like that is bar none what this entire universe and George Lucas and creating it is all about. And this series has, with these last 4 episodes, has elevated itself to one of my probably favorite animated shows of all time.
That's very good to hear, and I'm excited about this, and I hope you all enjoyed our review of Clone Wars, the finale, the final season, and we definitely want to hear your take on it.